So again, I've already disconnected the battery. The car is discharging. You know, the horn's not working. So we're just gonna let all the power discharge out of there. Before you start the installation, we are going to need all these parts, and I will put the part numbers for these things in the description of the video below. But we need a new rear bezel for the steering wheel. We need the left and right paddle shifters. We need these plastic covers that go on the back end of the bezel after we install the paddle shifters. The wiring harness, again, I'll give you the wiring harness for the non-heated steering wheel variant. And we need the 3/8 inch hex bit and a T20 bit. And we're just gonna need a flathead screwdriver for getting some of the pieces off. So on the steering wheel here, on both sides, if you look on the back side here, there is this little plastic piece where we're going to use our flathead screwdriver to pop that off. And on the inside is a nut that holds the airbag on. So both sides will have this. So you're basically going to stick the flathead screwdriver in, peel it back, and then it pops this open, which gives us access to the nut right there. One on each side will release the airbag. Now that we have access to this nut, it is a 10 millimeter, and we are going to unscrew these on both sides. And just like we did on the driver's side, this is the passenger side. We're going to use the 10 millimeter, and we will take this off as well. I'm going to mount you back there, that way you're not looking at a shaky camera and you can kind of see what I'm doing here with the steering wheel, okay? So, airbag, we just pull straight back, which now is going to expose all the wires on the inside here. So once we're inside looking at the airbag, we're going to see kind of this bluish teal and then a yellow. These are color coded for the airbag on the backhand side. And then another wire here that's just a quick disconnect. So we're going to remove these 3 wires to free the airbag. In order to remove these, we actually have to, focus for me, we're going to have to release the lock. So using a flathead screwdriver, you're going to stick it in there and twist. We'll do it again on this one. We're going to stick it in the gap and twist. That unlocks the locks for the airbags. Pull those all the way up. And now we can just pull those directly back to unplug the airbag. So straight back, and we unplug. And then this one is just a quick disconnect that we will pull straight off. So now that the wires are disconnected, the airbag pulls straight off. Again, this piece right here, we just pull it straight back. There's no locks or anything. And those are our 3 wires connecting the airbag. Go ahead and set that off to the side right now. The next step that we need to do is we need to remove these 2 control pieces using the T20 Torx bit that we have that is going to be on the back side of the steering wheel. So I'll show that step next. So on the back side of the steering wheel, there is a T20 Torx bit on this side. There's one on the other side as well. So we will use our T20 Torx bit and unscrew this on both sides. So once you've removed the T20 screws from the back side of the steering wheel, that will release these bezel pieces, okay? Both sides are going to be loose. On the back side, you're going to have a set of wires here. A set of wires that are on a connector, and it's pretty much pull straight back to get the wires disconnected. You just want to be careful that you're doing this so you're not breaking any of the just want to make sure you're doing all of this so you're not breaking any of the pins or pulling any of the wires free from this. There is a tiny lock on the back side that you need to be pressing when you're doing this. So again, the wires do go right here. There is a little black tab that you need to press down to pull the wiring off of this. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. Again, we've unscrewed the Torx bit on the back. There is a tiny tab that we're going to press against. I'll actually show you the tab on this one so you guys know what I'm talking about. The one that we just took off, there's the tab for the lock. The one that we're about to take off, there's the tab for the lock. And we're going to press that tab down and we're going to pull it straight back. I need two hands to be able to hold this and pull it, but I wanted to show you what pieces I was manipulating here. Got your mounted back up over there. I'm going to push that little tab that I just showed you to release the lock, and it pulls straight out. On to the next step. Now is the point where we have to attack the nut that's holding the steering wheel on. A lot of people just kind of show this thing easily come off. This is actually the hardest part of this install. If I'm lucky, I'm going to be able to get this off. If I'm not lucky and this goes the way most of the time how this goes, I'm going to have to get a friend and we're going to use a pry bar. A friend is probably going to have to lean on this steering wheel here and we're going to have to fight it off. So here's hoping that this goes easy. So let's see how this goes. Yeah, this is going to be a fight, guys. Gonna need a cheater bar and a friend to help. So I was able to do this off camera. Unfortunately, I didn't have the camera going because I had to have my neighbor sitting right here. He held onto the steering wheel while I got on the outside, got a little bit more leverage with the wrench right here, and we turned, and basically we popped the thread lock off of this. So now we can just get this nut off the wheel. And there you go, it's off. That is the hardest part of this install, right there. Now that we got that nut removed, there's this weighted piece. Basically, it is literally just a heavy piece of metal that sits on the bottom of the steering wheel. I'm pretty sure this gives some sort of effect for balance of the steering wheel or something like that, but it's just a chunk of metal. What we're going to do now is we're going to pull the steering wheel off. When you pull the steering wheel off, just feed these lines back through the hole on the right hand side. Now we got the steering wheel off, we can start taking this rear bezel off. We're going to go inside where there's a little bit more light, some more room, and we'll work on changing out this bezel. Come on inside. Alright, now that we're inside, we need to finish removing this bezel. Okay, so that's held on by two T20 Torx screws down here at the bottom. So we're going to take these off. Once we got those off, the front bezel piece will come off. While we're looking at the back of the steering wheel here, on the inside here is right here. On the inside right here, you can see a little plastic tab. That's the tab that actually holds the wiring harness in right here. Just use some needle nose pliers, put it in there, and if you squeeze it and pinch it, you can actually push that back through to the front to get the wiring harness out. So again, you can squeeze that and then you can get this all out in one piece. Now that the front bezel is off here, we can actually pop the rear bezel off, and everything is kind of popped on here with little retainer clips. Little clips here, so basically you're just going to pull and pop those clips from the front, and now you have the bezel off. And I'm dropping all my screws. And also, just to be clear, the reason why I popped that tab out is because this was wrapped around the steering wheel, so you have to actually pop this harness off in order to get the back bezel off. So this is the old harness here. So now that we got that bezel off, we're going to take the new one and then we're going to put it in, reinstall it back into place. Again, there's those four tabs that we're basically going to snap this on the steering wheel. So those pieces are secure and lined back up. just like so. So those are all back on there, and then when we screw everything back down, it'll cinch it back on there. Now, to install the paddle shifters, you see there's these two plastic tabs. These basically snap into the plastic bezel that was there. So obviously L for left, R for right. So you're just going to line this up, put the tabs in position, and then you're going to push to snap those back in. The steering wheel flipped over now. We take our new wiring harness, the wider pin right here goes on the right hand side, and then this smaller pin right here, we just need to plug it in right there to connect our paddle shifters. So we'll get those connected right now. What I actually did is I actually pulled these out. It was a little bit easier to plug in the connecting wires while I did this with them out rather than trying to feed it through a little crack right here to plug them in. So I did pull those out. So our next step here is to get the front steering wheel controls, connect those in with the wiring harness up front here, and we're going to use our T20 screws and put things back together. So just again, real quick, make sure the longer side here is on the right hand side of the steering wheel. That's going to plug into your controls. And that snaps in. On the other side, this one's the 4-pin. This one will snap into your controls here. So that's your front controls snapped back in. While you have it all out like this, you want to take this opportunity to clean up all your wiring. Snap these pieces back into the holes so nothing's flopping around, alright? We're just going to screw these back in here with the T20 Torx. Last thing we need to do is put this bezel piece back in to attach the new rear bezel with these screws. We'll get this screwed in here real quick and then we'll head back out to the car. Alrighty, so the lower bezel piece is going to go on there. We will flip this over, and these small T20 screws that we had, we will screw these back in here. Now before we take these covers and put them back on here, we need to remount the steering wheel because the airbag mounting screws are going to go right there. So don't put these on yet. Let's go back out to the car. So we're going to put the steering wheel back onto the car. We're going to need the steering wheel, we're going to need the nut, and we're going to need this little weighted metal piece. So we'll line the steering wheel up. We're going to feed the airbag wires through the hole on the right hand side that it was in originally. And get this back on to the steering wheel. Like so. You got to get the weight back in. Get that seated, and then we take the nut and we're going to put the nut back in. And then we're going to use our 3/8" hex driver to put this back in nice and tight. Now, some of you are going to wonder, like, what if you put your steering wheel back on, not straight or anything like that? There's little notches in there that are only going to allow you to put the steering wheel back on in the position it came off on. So don't worry about accidentally putting it on like 90 degrees the wrong direction or anything like that. It's only going to fit back on one way. After we got our steering wheel on nice and tight, we're just going to plug all of our wires back in. Okay, hooking back the airbag. I already hooked this up. I believe this wire is for the horn. And then again, hooking up the airbag here, the blue or teal or whatever it is, and the yellow are going to connect to each other into the corresponding spots for the color. I'm going to set you guys up so hopefully you can see this without seeing a shaking camera. So we'll try that angle there and we'll plug in the airbag. Plug it in and lock. Same thing with the other one. We're going to plug it in and then lock. So once you get the airbag all hooked up, you're going to set the airbag back into position. Make sure we're not crimping any of the wires, and then we are going to screw the airbag in through the holes for the original screws, mounting screws that we used. Then on both sides, 10mm socket to wrench down the bolts to hold the airbag in place. So when you're putting on these last caps that go on the back, make sure you look, see which one's left, which one's right, and then you can click them on. If you don't pay attention, they won't go on right. On this side, put it on here, one-handed, just snaps on, and then there you go. So the install is done. We need to use the taser now to turn on the flash. So basically, after you get it all hooked back up, hook up the battery. Didn't hear a boom from the airbag. That's good. I'm just going to start it real quick, just make sure everything starts up, make sure the airbag doesn't go off. I'm going to sit off to the side. It's probably a little bit more cautious than I need to be, but so start it up. Alrighty, so we got the paddle shifters installed, but we need to turn it on in the computer. So we will put the car into run with the engine off. Turn off all the climate control. So taser is in. We'll go through the taser menu to turn on the paddle shifters. So basically, going through the taser, we're up to the paddles. Paddle says no. We're going to hold back in the on-off to turn paddles on. We'll turn the ignition to off. Turn everything back on. And we'll get out of our taser menus. Yes, I know I need an oil change. And so there we go. We're going to go ahead and start the engine here. And then when we put it into drive, when we hit the paddle shifters, 1, 2, up, back down to 1, so the paddle shifters are correctly working. And then press and hold to go back into drive. So there you go. Paddle shifters are installed, they're turned on, and they're working. From a quick drive to verify that they were working, and they are. So anyways, it's a great mod. Bruce, thank you so much for sending me those, and you know, hopefully this was a helpful video for anybody that was planning on installing the paddle shifters on their car. So you can always buy them brand new. You can always go to a junkyard and find a crashed Charger and pull the paddle shifters. Don't forget, you need the rear bezel, you need both the paddle shifters, and then you need the wiring harness. So if you're gonna salvage it, those are the pieces that you need. Oh yeah, and those little plastic pieces that go on the back of the steering wheel with the rear bezel. Anyways, like, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.